Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dinosaur Dungeon. So this is the beginning of our video series on how to build and paint dinosaur model kits. Obviously this will be relevant to any model kit that you're building. So please watch, even if you build figures or whatever model kits you build, it will be relevant. So anyway, we're going to start by talking a little bit today just about what tools and materials you'll need to do this, and we'll go from there, and I'll actually show you how to prep one piece to fit to another. So let's begin. So I'm just going to show you quickly this tail piece here. This one, you can see that it fits fairly well now. There's still a little bit of a gap, so that'll come in a later video, probably the next one, actually, how to fill the gaps and stuff like that. But I already cleaned that piece. There was actually some flashing on there and it didn't fit properly. So I'm going to explain what I did and what tools I used in order to get to that point. So some of the tools that you're going to want to have is files. Files are always good to get into these small spots up here, as you'll see. If at all possible, a Dremel tool is really a good idea. This is the one from Canadian Tire, and you can buy these for about 39 bucks, I think it was, for that. So you can get really cheap ones. Obviously you can also get very expensive ones that cost you upwards of $200. So they can get very expensive. You're also going to want some sandpaper, or sanding pads work well too, and I will show you those here. I use two different kinds, so let me just show you those. Use a thicker sanding block and a small sanding pad, so I like to use those as well. And then when we get into filling the seams, we're going to use this product right here, Aves Epoxy Sculpt. I'm sure you're all familiar with that product. If not, it's a two-part it's a two-part epoxy clay that you mix together, and you have usually, I'd say, a little over an hour working time, but you'd probably want to use it even a little less than that. It sets up a little bit longer than that, but it takes 24 hours to completely dry and to be ready for paint. So obviously once you've done that, usually what you want to do is get your kit all cleaned up and glued together, and then you can mix a bunch of it and go through and fill all the seams with this stuff. Leave it for 24 hours, and then the next day you can come and start priming and painting your kit. So that's kind of along the lines where we're headed with this. Some other tools that you'll need a little later on possibly are, I'll show you these here. It's a little bin of different, there's a pen in there, sculpting tools, because wherever the seams are, you're going to have to replicate the skin. Another way to replicate skin is also to take some Super Sculpey or the Aves Epoxy Sculpt, depending on how you like to do it. But I'll show you with this product right here. This is Super Sculpey. You can take a little piece of it, and you want to get it warmed up, and you want to get it about thumb size. We're just going to do this quickly here to show you, and then we're going to press it in nicely here, and then we're going to take it out, and as you can see, hopefully that's zooming in properly for you, you can see that it makes a perfect impression of the skin. So when you attach these and you fill it, you can press this back in and make that seam look like it's not there. You can actually replicate the skin detail and clean it up quite nicely. So that's another thing that is a really good idea to do. The lines, of course, you can just do, like I said, with a sculpting tool. So I'll explain here. So the file you'd want for areas like this, you can see how you get in there nicely, cleans these edges out. Just a quick way to run through and take it off. So it doesn't take long when you're using the right tools, so the file works great. But I'm going to show you with an actual piece here. We're going to attach the head to the neck here. You can see it's about halfway, and you can see how it's kind of messed up a little bit in the middle, and it's got a similar thing on the other side, but they don't fit perfectly. If you try to line them up, they actually are a little bit off. So what we're going to do is take the Dremel tool and we're going to clean that up a little bit just to get it so it fits better. The first thing you want to do is analyze it. Now, I can also see that there is another option here. So if I hold it up, I could glue it the way it is, and we'll check the other side just to make sure. It does fit quite nicely on this side. So we could actually just glue it, and then we could fill in that larger seam. But I think what we're going to do is we're just going to clean up this little bit on the inside. So we're going to turn on the Dremel tool. This one's actually very old, so it doesn't always work properly. This might be a little bit loud, so just bear with me. And we're going to clean up. So we've cleaned it up so we can check it out and see how it fits. It certainly fits better, but you can see that there's still a little bit of a seam. You can either put it tight this way and have a little bit on that side, or you can turn the head a little bit more and you'll have a seam to fill on that side. So sometimes it's not always perfect, but that's okay, because like I said, we can replicate it perfectly with the epoxy sculpt. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to glue this piece together, and I'm going to use two kinds of stuff here. I'm going to use a 5-minute epoxy because it's really durable. So we're going to mix that up together, but I'm also going to use a super glue with some, I'll show you the super glue here. With some Insta Set. That way I won't have to hold it for all 5 minutes. And I think I'm going to, let me just check this again. Yeah, I'm going to do it with where it's sitting onto here, because I think I like that turn a little bit better. Yeah. I'm gonna just use this. I'm gonna flatten this. Clean it off. We don't want the little bits from the sandpaper to be stuck to the piece, because when we glue it, we need a clean surface to glue it so it'll fit. So I like that where it's at. So now we're going to glue it together. So I'm going to grab a little ketchup cup just to squirt some of the epoxy into. There we go. All right. That's an old one. Just gonna grab a knife as well, and we're gonna mix that up. And we're gonna glue this piece together. Then we're gonna talk about the next video, which is filling the seams. So the goal of this is to actually make a video series of the entire process. Ooh, that's beautiful, and it's working well. So we're going to mix a little bit right like that. We're going to build this up. We're going to make as many YouTube videos as it takes to get from start to finish on building up this kit. So that means we're going to clean it up and base coat and do a full paint job on it, and probably even make a video about, or 2 videos depending on length, on how long or how to build a diorama or a base for this guy, because I think it would look really really cool. So we're gonna put this, that's an awful lot, that's okay, I don't want this thing going anywhere. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that set up for about 1 minute and do one quick thing while I'm thinking about it, and then we'll go from there. So let's just glue this part on in 1 second after we do this one little part here, and then we're going to go from there, and then that'll be it. I just noticed this little lump right here, and I want to glue on, I want to be able to glue on the little piece of the mouth. Not yet, because I want to paint in there, but I still want to clean this up a little bit before putting it together. So Perfect. So, okay, so now because the epoxy takes 5 minutes to dry, we actually had time to do that, and it's actually still not quite as sticky as we want it to be, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is drop just around the edges just a little bit of this. This is our super glue, and hopefully this will still work, because sometimes when the glues get mixed together they don't really work well, but I don't like holding it for a long period of time either, so we got to make sure that it's lined up nicely, and it appears to be working. I'm going to give that one minute to crystallize up, and I can see that there's a small error when I look at it from the bottom. Right here it overlaps, so we're going to have to sand that down and then fix that up. So that's something that we can do easily. I like to come in and sand on an angle anyway, to that way I can fill in the seams better. I find if they're tight and straight, it's still very hard to mask them, so I kind of come in, make them diagonally on each side, fill the clay in, make it almost like a lump or a skin line, and then add the texture in and go from there. So in the next video we're going to actually fill in the seam on this, but I'm going to build the rest of it off camera, and then when we come back we're going to talk just about filling seams. This one is all about basically just cleaning up the kit, like I was explaining, going through, making sure, taking your file, your sandpaper, getting all the parts cleaned. And one other thing that I am not going to show you in this video, but that is very important, especially before painting, but you should do it while you have the small pieces. It makes it a lot easier, is to wash the pieces. The reason why we wash the pieces is because the mold release will still be on there, and later on when you go to paint, it's probably not going to be very good, and the paint may come off, may not, you never know. So it's always better to be safe than sorry. So wash the parts first, and then you start sanding and cleaning them up, which is where we're at now. And then in the next video we're going to fill the seams and make it look like one piece. Anyway, we'll be back with that second video soon, so thank you for watching, and please subscribe.